Good afternoon, everybody. We'll just give it a second or two whilst everybody's connecting and getting the sound working. I can see one or two that are still connecting their audio and coming into the waiting room. So just bear with us for a moment or two. Okay, we'll make a start. Very good afternoon. For those that don't know me, my name's Mark Sumner. I'm the Retail Core Manager for the Newcastle NE1 bid. This afternoon's session, which we've entitled The Reopening of Retail, is just aimed to let you know about the vast work that NE1 and our respective partners with the Northumbria Police and the City Council have been doing behind the scenes whilst you've all been busy preparing to open your doors to what we hope is going to be a very busy trading period for you. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to just try and plan to make sure that the city centre is a safe and engaging place for everybody to come, and that there are no issues, and that you know, your priorities, your focus is left to just run your business and do what you need to do, and then we can take care of everything else and hopefully make everything work. So there will be some information that we're going to give out to kind of give you the background to that. There's an opportunity throughout the session to ask any questions, and if you want to do that, if you can just use the chat function, please, which should be at the bottom of your screen. If you can type your question out, and then we'll try and address that either during or at the end of the session. What we're going to cover this afternoon is we're going to look at kind of what your responsibilities as businesses are in terms of queues outside of your premise. We're going to look at what support and resources are available to deal with any issues kind of outside of that. So on the street, managing social distancing, managing any issues that might happen outside. We're going to kind of talk about what we think will be some of the risks or issues that might happen on the street, and how we're kind of planning to tackle those issues, and whose role it will be to kind of look at those things. We'll let you know kind of who to contact if you've got any issues throughout the whole process. And then we'll talk a bit about communications that are happening to kind of get the message out to the users of the city centre around transportation and parking and shopping and that kind of stuff. So hopefully you'll kind of leave the session knowing that you know, we're able to open the doors next Wednesday to invite people into the city in a safe and welcoming way, and that if you do have any issues, that there are a whole host of people that are here to try and help support you along that journey. So I think the one point that I will just mention in part of this, and I know I've asked a number of you to kind of let me know what your trading hours are, and that's just so we can kind of plan for that, and I'll talk about our response to that later. But we're aware that a number of you are planning on extending your opening hours, particularly in the evenings, through till 9 o'clock initially throughout December, and then perhaps even as late as 10 o'clock in the final few days in the run to Christmas. So as I say, I'll talk about kind of our response to that in terms of the support we'll make available for that. But just to make you aware about a change to access in terms of vehicles onto Northumberland Street. You'll be aware that currently vehicles can't access the street until 8 p.m. at night. That is going to get pushed back because obviously we will have some of your stores that will be open later than that. And what we need to be able to do is to make sure that Northumberland Street is safe for pedestrians to be able to navigate their way through the street safely. So there will be a change to that, in that vehicles will be prevented from accessing Northumberland Street until 10 p.m. Each evening. Now, I've spoke to a number of businesses who I think could potentially be impacted by that, and hopefully we've kind of discussed and agreed how we'll manage that. If that arrangement is going to cause you any issues, please drop me a line, give me a ring, drop me an email, and we can discuss how we can support you through that. You know, the one thing that we don't want to do is to impact you being able to run your business. But obviously, our primary focus is to maintain safety on the street and make sure that pedestrians are safe to be able to walk down Northumberland Street. So in terms of moving on with the agenda, and I'm sure hot on everybody's mind is thinking about kind of parking and how the city will cope. So I'm pleased to welcome Craig Mordew, who's the service manager for parking services, who's just going to kind of tell us a little bit around what parking services are doing to try and help the free flow of people coming into the city.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Like I say, my name's Craig Mordew. I'm the service manager for parking services. Just touching on what Mark was talking about there about late night shopping, just to give you some reassurances that if there's going to be some sort of later hours for shopping, we'll keep the car parks open to reflect that. So, for example, if we're ordinarily shut at 10 o'clock, close the car parks at 10, and the shops are going to be open till 10, we'll probably extend that to at least 11 o'clock. So just to give you some reassurances that, you know, the car park and closing times will adjust to any changes in, you know, the shop and open hours, and we're happy to work with yourselves around that. So talking more generally about the parking, we anticipate it is going to be busy over sort of the course of now and the run up to Christmas, as it traditionally is. And the reality is this time of year, the demand for parking exceeds the number of spaces in the core city centre. And that's just something, you know, we tend to try and manage. One thing, there's no football matches this year, so that might help a little bit. But in terms of what we have planned is, we know the most desirable car parks are around Eldon Square. So that's Eldon Square Car Park, Eldon Garden, of which we have around about 900 spaces. There are generally queues there. We're looking at a media campaign, probably starting over the course of next week, to really get the message across to people to plan their journeys coming in. In addition to that, we're also going to change our focus a little bit from, I would say, patrolling car parks or enforcing areas to a little bit more customer service, I would say. So what we anticipate to do, we'll constantly monitor occupancy levels in Eldon Square, Eldon Garden car parks. If we think that's starting to get a bit tight in terms of occupancy, and there's maybe cars starting to wait on Percy Street, we'll then look at drawn on the temporary signage, which we're currently getting made around encouraging people to say, or letting people know that the car parks are a little bit busy, and try and provide or encourage people to park in adjacent car parks. Examples would be Granger Town, the Civic Centre, Claremont Road, the Stadium car park up at the football club. So they're on the real periphery, or the direct periphery of the city centre, but we would try and encourage people. We also have our UTMC, which are Urban Traffic Management Control. We have signs sort of farther afield, and we'll be using those just to try and, you know, get the message across and help people to park. So in a nutshell, that's what we're looking at. So we appreciate it's going to be busy. There'll be a strong emphasis on trying to help people find spaces. You know, our enforcement guys will be in the car parks and liaising with our control room around what spaces are available in peripheral car parks and, of course, the main shopper car parks. So, you know, we'll do everything we can to support you guys over what will be undoubtedly a very busy period over the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks. And if anybody's got any questions or wants to discuss anything, you know, I'm happy to pick anything up.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Craig. I really appreciate your time there. And obviously, parking is going to be key, so it's good to know that there's plans afoot there, and that some of the enforcement guys will for once be actually helping people and giving them something that they might welcome in terms of a service rather than otherwise. Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay, so the list then. I think we're going to talk about kind of business responsibilities and a new role that's been introduced onto the street to try and manage some of the issues out there. So I'm going to introduce, for those that don't know him, Ed Foster. Ed's the head of public safety and regulation for the City Council. So Ed.
Hi, thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think that COVID has changed us all, as well as Craig's parking offices sort of turn into be good. And we've had our enforcement officers giving out food parcels during the COVID pandemic. So it's changed us all. The most recent results, public health figures, show that we've probably only just missed being in tier 2, and that it's a disappointment that we can't open up the nighttime economy and the hospitality sector as well. But throughout the pandemic, we've tried to give advice to you all to support you, because we want the city to do well, and we want to keep people in jobs and make sure that the city works well for us all. And that is very much the agenda that we have. And the team here, if anyone's got any queries about their risk assessments and the way that queuing, or any questions at all about the way that they manage COVID, I can send the team out to come and work with you and just work through those issues. And that is very much the relationship that we want to have with you. Tarek and Mark asked me to talk about queuing and your management of COVID. And what I've asked the team to do, we've put together some guidance that we can circulate after this meeting. And there's quite a useful summary in there, a tick list that you can sort of look at. So in terms of queue management, that is very much your responsibility, both inside and outside. And the first step, looking at inside your premises, you need to sort of identify where your pinch points are. Things are going to be much busier than we expect. Those last few days before lockdown, Northumberland Street, I think that the figures that we saw were very, very high in terms of footfall. So you need to think that there's going to be extra pressure on your store. You need to know what the capacity of your store is, and you need to make sure that you have a flow system around your premises so that customers can maintain social distancing, and markings so that customers can keep that social distancing in place. As soon as people come into your store, there probably needs to be somebody there to meet and greet them and just sort of point out what procedures they should be following. So there's hand sanitizer available, and that you're asking people to wear face masks, and having a COVID champion in charge of the premise and managing the situation is absolutely key. And we've seen this both with the retail and the hospitality sector. If you've got dedicated staff that are managing the way that people go around your premises and managing the outside of your premises, that works well. In terms of outside the premises, that is your responsibility as well. And there's a lot of work gone in by Mark and the highways team to make sure that you've got allocated space for queuing, and that you know the plans. You should be familiar with the plans that you have and where your queuing spot is on the street, and that you're managing and all the time assessing that queue. It might be that come the busy periods that the queues extend. You need to think about that beforehand. How do you manage that? What does that look like? And do you need additional measures in place? And you need to make sure that you're not causing issues for neighbouring premises with the congestion from your premises. We are very much looking about how the on-street is monitored as well, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But you need to make sure that your staff, probably before you open again, just give them a reminder of what your plans are about the way that you're managing queuing and the way your COVID plans, and just keep reminding them. And one of the other things that we've got on the website is managing an outbreak. you need to think about that as well, that your staff are working in teams so that you're not wiped out if one member of staff comes down with COVID, that staff observe social distancing at all times. With the outbreak management of cases that we've gone through, the biggest problem has been staff sort of mingling in staff rooms, sharing suites and just coming too close together, sharing lifts into work. You need to sort of re-emphasize to staff that all those measures, that they need to be careful about their behavior. And your COVID security and your risk assessment is only COVID secure if people follow and behave in the way that you expect. And you need to be constantly giving them a reminder to keep the socially distanced and to follow the careful measures that you've planned. So in terms of Northumberland Street, we're going to be sort of meeting on a daily basis to look at issues that arise. The City Council, we've organised to put the City Host back on the street. This time the City Hosts are going to be a little bit different. We're hoping that they're going to be friendly. They're actually SIA staff. And one of the issues before was that people do need to sort of be politely sort of told to follow the guidance that we've put in place and the directional flow on Northumberland Street. So we're going to have 8 City Hosts out just trying to direct the public. Their role will be to do that, and also if the seat issues are rising with the queuing, to work with NE1 to try and get people to stand in the right place if the seat issues are rising. And we'll keep monitoring that. If we need more marshals, City Hosts, then we'll have to bring them in. And as I say, we're on the lookout for issues that arise on the street, and we'll be reviewing that on a daily basis to make sure that we keep customers and people flowing on the street, and that we don't compromise safety, and that security and safety are absolutely paramount. And we want to do everything possible. If you see issues arising, then you can raise them with Mark, or you can contact me, and we'll try and get those dealt with as quickly as possible. And then as a last resort, there's Steve and the police there to support if a stronger enforcement option is necessary. But we're there to help, and we're there to try and make sure that the city centre functions in the best way possible, given the difficult circumstances we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Oh, that's great, Ed. Thank you very much. Just reminded me there when you were talking about the queues outside of premise, just to kind of point out to everybody, and you'll remember, for those of you when we opened in June, we offered up the queuing spots, which the council very kindly provided and came and put down based on conversation that we'd had around kind of how you want your queue to look. The council have ordered a load more of those, because obviously in time and with the weather, some of those have come up. So if your business needs some of those queuing spots, drop me an email, give me a call. I'll either come and meet you and agree which way your queue's going to go again, or if we already know that, then just tell me that you want the spots put down, and then we can arrange for the council to do that within the next few days. There's a question from Gemma at JD Sports around the allocated queuing, and what size is the allocation. Each of the businesses have got an allocated area, and that's marked out and has been since first lockdown in June. There's white markers outside of your premise, and those white markers kind of denote your area. So just as an example of for JD Sports, Gemma, as you kind of look out from your door, over in the right hand corner, kind of as you border next door with Cotswolds, there's a white L shape which denotes the far right hand corner of your queuing area. That then goes right the way down the street as far as the salon next door, and there's another one that's kind of about 2 meters out in the street. So those white markers denote where you're allowed to have people queuing within. And obviously the point that Ed's making there is that your queue needs to be managed within that area, because anything outside of that will then start to cause an obstruction either to neighbouring properties or to the pedestrian walkways, which will stop people from being able to navigate through the street. So, you know, we appreciate your help with that, but give me a call if you want those spots down.
Can I just add, Mark?
Yeah, certainly, Ed.
Yeah. If you don't feel confident in managing your queue, then it may be that you need to buy in some professional help to help with managing the queue.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And just around the point that you just put in the chat function there as well, Ed. If any of you retailers are aware that you're going to be having anything that's going to generate even a busier period, so you know whether it be a flash sale or any kind of promotional activity, please let us know with plenty of notice, just so we can try and help support you through that. Because obviously, you know, it's going to be a challenging time. So if there's anything on top of that, then we may need to look at doing things differently or put in additional support to try and allow that activity to go ahead safely. You know, this is all about supporting you guys to do what you need to do to have a successful trading period, and everything that NE1 and the council and the police are doing is to try and support you through that journey, to try and make it work, not to stop you from doing stuff. So, you know, please bear that in mind and don't be afraid to ask for help if you're struggling with anything. Thanks, Ed. So moving on then, let's if I can perhaps introduce Chief Inspector Steve Wykes from Northumbria Police, who's very kindly agreed to join us to just talk about kind of the police's role in all of this and how he intends to kind of manage the city centre in terms of police activity. Steve.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I always have the benefit of enjoying a flurry of text messages of people taking the mick out of me whilst I'm doing this. Apparently, I need a haircut. So, yeah, that's on the agenda. Thank you. We realise that this is a really challenging time for the retail sector and, of course, the hospitality sector. And the reopening poses several challenges for you. I think it's important to acknowledge that the police's role has always been to support the creation of a welcoming and safe city environment so that your customers and your staff and your businesses can operate in the most sort of welcoming environment and most economically beneficial environment. That support clearly is probably more important now than ever, and so it will be provided. In short, the police role and our plans as we approach the reopening of retail is to ensure that we're visible within the city, and I'll talk you through a little bit of that. That visibility will be primarily to provide attending members of the public and your staff and your businesses some reassurance as they come back together, and to prevent crime and disorder. We'll do that by deploying staff to the transport hubs and sort of main high footfall areas of the city so that people moving around the city and coming into the city do see the police. We'll be seeking to address key issues that we know we experience in the city, and we've done an awful lot of work to try and deal with that sort of aggressive begging issue that has, I think, a large impact on people's confidence in the city. And so we will be specifically briefing staff to be addressing that where they can. We'll be doing that using the duty teams that you're already familiar with. We are, and alongside the operations sphere staff that some of you will know about, which is sort of an additional proactive team in the city, we're also surging some resource into the city for the next few weeks. There will be overtime staff, a combination of PCSOs and police officers coming in under the supervision of the normal duty teams, but to provide us that extra resilience in terms of visibility. And then in addition to that, our COVID task force that we've had in place across all of Newcastle and Gateshead in order to support enforcement, some of them will be diverted into the city to support the resourcing requirements that we have there. We will work closely with the staff that Ed and his teams are putting into the city, so that daily briefing is something that police will take part in. And essentially, we're absolutely there to support. And we always get dragged into a bit of a discussion around queuing. Preferably, the police won't be involved in that. Absolutely, I see a role for the police if things are becoming unmanageable or if things are becoming a little bit anxious within queues. We will try and support with that. But fundamentally, we need to be making sure that the city looks right and is safe for people to come into. And that isn't about queues. That's about how a very small minority of people may seek to behave in the city when lots of people are returning to it. So we will be focusing on that to make sure that crime and disorder is at a minimum as best as it can be. And hopefully the plans that you're all putting in place, and I know you've done some excellent work as a retail sector and in partnership with the local authorities and NE1 to put in place the right plans to make sure that the stuff that we don't really want to have to get involved with goes as smoothly as it can do. But I assure you we're there to help if absolutely necessary. And that's really it from me. Clearly I'll take questions now or later. And I really hope that it goes well for you. I know that you'll be desperate for this period of time to be as beneficial as it can be for you, and I hope that it is.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Okay, I'll address this question now, and Ed, I'm not sure if you can answer this for us. I mean, I could answer it, but it'll sound better coming from you. A question from Ian McLeod in terms of he thought there'd been some discussion around canopies being installed to offer some protection to the elements to customers on Northumberland Street, and he's saying, is that likely? Is that something you can answer?
I'll try to. I think that with some of the work that we've done with the hospitality sector, they've been winterizing the pavement cafes. So on Grey Street and on Dean Street, we've seen plans come in for the pavement cafes, putting up that kind of hoarding. And if the pantomime had gone ahead at the Theatre Royal, there would have been canopies there that the theatre were putting in place. But no, we haven't, and you would need a highways permission if you were to plan to do anything in the space that's been allocated to you. But we're really short on space on Northumberland Street, and canopies are just going to sort of take up more of that space. I think that we're really worried about possible congestion and the issues that's going to cause. So I think that it's unlikely that we'll see canopies apart from the examples that I've given.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what we're saying there is that there are no plans to do it. If, however, a business wanted to do something, then by all means get in touch with NE1, get in touch with the council, and we can discuss it to see whether it's going to be possible and if we can help you on that journey or not. Because obviously it would need to be a separate conversation with highways, but we could at least talk about it and try and see if there's any way we can assist you with that. Thank you, Ed. Okay, so if we now start to talk about perhaps the role of the various partners and the available support, and in terms of the city hosts, Ed's told us there about the city host role. You know, potentially up to 8 city hosts every day of the week, covering various areas wherever the footfall is. Primarily attempting to encourage people to keep to the socially distanced processes that the council have got in place, helping with any issues in terms of blockages, obstructions on the highway that are perhaps stopping the street from performing fully. Eyes and ears for any other kind of issues. So you know, it's all about them being there to assist whatever they need to assist with, whether it's, you know, first aid, whether it's wayfinder information for shoppers and visitors, or whether it's identifying an issue and helping resolve that to take that problem away and keep the street running. So they will be working very closely with the police, as Steve mentioned before, certainly very closely with ourselves in the Street Ranger team and at NE1 with the council. You know, any feedback, any requests for how we can help, or any feedback as to anything that we're particularly doing that's working well or not working so well, and we're always welcome to hear stuff like that. Thank you. We thank you for that. In terms of the street rangers, I mentioned earlier on about how we're kind of flexing to meet the demand of the businesses with extended opening hours. So currently our trading hours for the street ranger team are through till 6:30 each evening, and that's based on the majority of stores kind of closing at 6. Appreciating the fact that trading is going to be running up till 9 o'clock for many stores throughout December. we're going to extend the street ranger operating hours, so we'll be patrolling the streets from 8 o'clock in the morning through till 9:30 in an evening, Monday to Friday, 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday, and the usual 5:30 on a Sunday. So that should always give us sufficient cover to just patrol the streets, deal with any issues, and be on hand to support wherever that's needed. We're increasing the number of rangers that will be out there, obviously, taking into consideration that there'll be a lot more people on the streets and in the city. So there'll be more rangers. Typically, we would have 4 on any one day. That will be rising up to 6 or 7 on some days to meet demand, depending on how busy the town is. Obviously, the weekends are going to be the pinch points, so that's when we'll focus our extra attention. And again, always welcome to support where we can. So if you feel you need a street ranger support, then get in touch, and we'll do what we can to help you resolve any issues that you have. In terms of police, Steve gives an update there on the police activity with the police, the PCSOs. We'll be drawing on the support of the CCTV across the city as well, because often that can pick up things and spot any issues that may be happening, whether that's from an NASB or from a crowd issue. So we'll have extra support from CCTV that'll keep us in touch with any flash points or any issues there. And I think, a second. Yeah, so in terms of the issues that we're likely to face, and Steve mentioned a couple before, and not wanting to dwell on these too much, but to just give you an idea as to kind of the common issues that we'll start to look at and who will be responding to those. Clearly, one of the key ones will be the traffic flow for pedestrians on the street. And we spoke about how, kind of that's the city host role, that we'll try and keep that moving as much as possible, obviously assisted by the street rangers and by council enforcement as well. Queuing issues, well, if that queuing issue is within your allocated area, then that's probably something that myself and the street rangers would get involved with, and we can come and have a chat with you about how we can perhaps help, or any issues that you may not be aware of that's happening within your queue. So if it's within that allocated area, then that's probably a role for NE1 to come and have a chat with you. If it's outside of that allocated area, then that's where the marshals would be looking at and trying to kind of deal with that blockage to keep the street moving and to keep access to neighbouring businesses free. Obstructions on the highway, again, that could be groups of people that are gathering in any particular location. It could be extended queues. It could be, street performers or buskers that are kind of causing blockages in the streets. So anything that's kind of out there that's stopping the street from functioning in terms of people being able to navigate, the marshals will kind of deal with as a first response, but then the street rangers after that, followed by any further enforcement that might be needed from the police if it gets to that. We appreciate the fact that when the streets are exceptionally busy, then that's likely to attract beggars, and in particular mobile beggars. We have seen in the last few weeks and months a trend of beggars kind of approaching people standing in queues rather than just sitting outside of businesses. The police have already given us their kind of stance in that they kind of adopt a zero tolerance approach to begging on Northumbrian Street, and we're doing their utmost proactively to stamp that out. Obviously, if you as a business have an issue where you're getting beggars outside of your premise, whether that be sitting down or approaching your queues, then the NE1 street rangers will deal with that. If the police already haven't, or if the police aren't around, then we can come and hopefully deal with that problem for you. Similarly with buskers, obviously with the streets are going to be busy, and I think the buskers will probably be thinking that they need to get onto the streets because there'll be a lot of people and therefore a lot of earning potential. Whilst there are no firm regulations preventing buskers, we have a set of guidelines. There is an acceptance that COVID takes priority over all of this. So buskers certainly shouldn't be camped out outside of your premise, particularly if that's going to be in your queuing area, because that doesn't allow your queue to operate safely. So we'll be doing everything possible to move those along. If there's buskers or street performers that are in the middle of, and again, that's causing an obstruction, then we'll do what we need to excuse me, to deal with that as well. ASB, absolutely, that's a job for the police. If the street rangers are around and it's lower level and we can interject safely and diffuse that, then absolutely we will do. Illegal street trading, we could well see, and the City Council's enforcement team are on hand to deal with that, and the licensing team to try and stamp out any illegal street trading activity that might take place in the retail area. You'll be aware of the ongoing issue that we've had with cyclists up and down Northumberland Street. Cycling isn't allowed on Northumberland Street, and we worked hard in the summer to try and eradicate that, and I think we did quite well. Obviously, in the last few weeks, I think that's kind of progressively got worse again, so we'll be working hard to try and stamp that out with the city hosts at the top and bottom of the street, trying to stop cyclists from entering the street and encouraging them to get off the bikes. The street rangers will take an active part in that, as will the police and PCSOs as well. And then again, that's just all about trying to create that safe area for people to walk through without the risk of a cyclist hurtling into the back of them. Retail crime. Obviously, with any of these issues, if there's an ongoing issue and an ongoing risk and threat, then the first port of call would obviously be the police. But in terms of retail crime, if it's something that's already happened and there isn't an immediate risk, then NE1, as always, the street ranger team are on hand to assist you with that. The one kind of common theme, and the one thing that I was keen to do with all of these issues, rather than have you with a full directory of, well, what's the issue and who do I contact, what I would propose to do is to just have a single point of contact for anything that's non-immediate, non-life threatening. So obviously it would be a police matter if it was. If it's not, then the NE1 Street Ranger team really can be your first port of call. We can then kind of triage the problem and either deal with it ourselves or engage the help of the relevant partner that can. And that hopefully takes the pain away from you guys in thinking, who do I report it to? Having to chase that up, that kind of stuff. We can take that pain away from you. You can just pass it to us, and then we'll resolve it however that needs to be resolved, and feed back to you the results on that. So that's kind of the partners. That's the activities that we see are the kind of the key risks that could stop a safe city centre, and hopefully, you know, you'll agree that there are some good actions there to try and safeguard against that. And hopefully, you know, if those things do happen, then there's a plan in place for us to quickly respond to it, to be able to resolve it and take that problem away for you. Okay, so I think next I'm going to pass on to Stephen Patterson. Stephen is our Director of Communications at NE1. Good afternoon, Stephen. You're on mute, Stephen.
There we go. Great. So thank you for unmuting me. Comms coming into the city centre, as I think everybody has touched on, we are expecting the city centre to be very busy in this important period before Christmas. Ultimately, the city comms with obviously NE1 working hand in glove with the city council. The comms is really revolving around two core themes, which is first and foremost about getting here, accessing the city centre. And as Craig touched on earlier on with regard to car parking, that's very much about signposting people to those car parks that are less busy, the ones we call the secondary car parks, albeit that they are very close to the city centre, so just a few short minutes walk. We know we are creatures of habit, and people will be heading to those primary car parks next to Eldon Square, Eldon Garden. But we will be very much putting comms out at the beginning of next week and throughout this period, urging people and directing people to these secondary car parks, just really trying to spread out that capacity around the city centre to make it as safe and as pleasant for the people coming in. The second theme is very much about when people are here in the city centre. It'll come as no surprise that's very much reinforcing those core messages of hands, face and space. Space obviously being the critically important one. At the moment, footfall on Northumberland Street, with the huge majority of shops closed, footfall on Northumberland Street is around about 45% year on year. Which concerns me, obviously, because the shops are the main draw to Northumberland Street. So when we do reopen, we're expecting that to be busy. And as I say, those sort of core principles of comms about how you access the city centre and your behaviour when you're here will be the thrust of what we're doing during this period. Beyond that, I won't go into the detail of it, but we have been working through a management plan, of which comms is really important if we do have, I suppose, issues with capacity, pedestrian capacity on Northumberland Street. So it was more just to let you know that we do have that in hand, but it is obviously very much dependent on the people of the city and how they behave when they get into the city centre. But we do have a management plan in place that is evolving and will evolve over this period. So that's principally it in terms of city comms. Beyond that, NE1, we are obviously promoting our businesses and those businesses that are able to open and safe to trade in. So very much targeting consumers. We'll be putting those messages out. It's all about sort of the safe reopening of the city and promoting people to spend money in your shops and the restaurants that flip to deliveries and all that type of thing. So very much promoting those businesses that are open. So Mark, that is it from me on comms. More than happy to answer any questions or queries if anybody has any.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. I'll just pick out some of these questions that have been coming in whilst we've been chatting, just to catch up. So a question from James and Ed. I'm going to ask you to respond to this if you can, please, if you can be ready. So regarding hospitality and restaurants where they're providing takeaway collections, James's question is: can customers who are collecting sit and wait inside the premise, as he feels that it would be better for customers waiting as opposed to outside where it might be causing obstructions?
If we have Ed on the call, I think that might be one for Ed, but certainly my understanding is that with the venues being closed as we're in tier 3, they shouldn't be allowed into the premises. Ed, are you unmuted, and are you still on the call here, Ed?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, very definitely. They shouldn't have people sat in the premises. They will need to sort of queue and be served individually and then moved off. We can't have people sat in the premises. That would be a breach and raising the risk. So we'll make sure, and we'll have environmental health and trading standards officers patrolling to make sure that that kind of issue doesn't arise. I'm sorry, we just can't allow customers to sit with being in a tier 3.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Steve, there's a question that I'm going to put your way if you don't mind, please. And it was a question from Tim around. He's asking: are there any known protests planned in the city?
We were on the call yesterday, and I think there is only one protest that we know of, which I believe is this weekend. But it is how do I say this diplomatically? It's not expected to be a big event. It's not a major protest or anything like that, and I believe it is planned for this weekend. It's not expecting to drag a lot of people to it. So far as I'm aware, Ed, unless you've had any further detail, I'm not aware of any protest planned for the obviously the from reopening through to Christmas. Is that your understanding as well, Ed?
Yes, there's nothing planned. Obviously, some of the protests are coming very last minute, and it's sort of gathering intelligence all the time from the local authority and the police. So we're scanning sort of social media all the time. So we're not predicting anything else unless Steve knows otherwise.
And Ed, just on that point, and obviously working with the police and with pedestrian space being a premium, I take it as we had during the first lockdown. I take it I suppose the direction would really be to work with those protesters and find an alternative location, wouldn't it be? That would be the sort of the primary objective. So it would be around not having that gathering in a core area, which is very busy with pedestrian footfall, which would increase the risk of COVID, but actually moving them to an alternative location. Am I correct? That's the process.
Yeah, with Northumbria Police, we've built up a document which will enables the police to think about other spaces for protest. It's very difficult, and different levels of restriction have given the police different powers. So we've identified alternative spaces, but it just depends. It's quite limited, and Steve's probably best to comment on when he can actually sort of persuade people strongly to move to other locations.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that the legislation that is relevant to protest rarely empowers the police to tell someone not to do it. The Human Rights Act is very clear around freedom of expression, freedom to gather together, to assemble, and freedom of speech, of course. Where we are given powers by virtue of the Public Order Act is where we have intelligence or that leads us to believe there will be serious violence and disorder. That is when we were empowered to start moving people around. Obviously, we conduct engagement in advance of protests, and we feed in a number of factors to organisers to allow them to make considered decisions around where they gather and what their impact may be. Sometimes it's important for them to acknowledge that the message they're trying to get across will be lost if it's in the middle of lots of sort of counter views, for example. So sometimes we are able to politely suggest they think about where they go. We just need to be really careful about saying that the police can tell someone to go somewhere else. We're rarely empowered to do that. On the question itself as to whether we expect any, Ed's absolutely right. We have a number of very small protest notifications that come through to us every week. I'm not aware of anything that is causing me any concern where we've put any command structure or significant resource around it at this time. And it's also important to note that there is a little bit of confusion around what the Health Protection Act has said in respect of protest. In the, I think, version 2, it was an exemption for political bodies to gather, and they were allowed to do so. It's not quite that clear that that exemption exists now. So we may be somewhat empowered by virtue of the Health Protection Act to limit the size, scale and location of gatherings. But yeah, that's it for me. Nothing that we know of that's particularly drastic at the moment, and we'll absolutely update relevant partners, including NE1, if we get intelligence about it.
That's great. Very much for that, Steve. The question was asked earlier on, which Dan's answered, but just in case anybody's not following the box, was asking about the Eldon Square trading hours, and Dan's very kindly responded to that, saying that their hours of trading for Eldon Square is going to be 9 AM till 8 PM Monday to 7 PM on a Saturday, and then 11 until 5 on a Sunday. I think that's expected to change for the final few days before Christmas, but that's kind of where it takes us for the first few weeks up to that period. If any of the retailers are planning alternative trading hours and you've not let let me know if you could, please, because that will just help us kind of inform our rosters and our support levels if we understand who's trading and when. So if there's any change to what you would normally do, please get in touch and let me know. I'm just going to quickly flick through the questions just in case there's any further ones that we've not dealt with. No, I think that's everything taken care of. So unless anybody has any further questions, as I mentioned at the start of this call, you know, we're working hard to try and make this a real success for you guys. We want you to, as traders, as retailers, as businesses, to be able to function with what's going to be a very, very busy period without headaches of what's going on outside. And you know, I mean this wholeheartedly, in that you've got any issues whatsoever, if you need any help, please get in touch. And if we can't help you, then we could probably know somebody that might be able to, whatever level of support that is. You know, we're here to assist you guys. So whether that's an email, whether it's a phone call, please don't be afraid to shout up. The council, and you've heard from Ed, you know, we're all here to try and support and to try and make it work for you, not to criticize for what you're doing, but to try and make it work. So please get in touch if you need any help and support. I will email out shortly with the contact numbers for the Street Ranger team and for myself, for anybody that doesn't have them, just to make sure that you've got our relevant updated contact information. I'll remind you of the hours that we work. The other point to mention that I should have said when we talk about the support as well is our the NE1 clean team will be back in full force as well. The City Council's cleansing team do a fantastic job at keeping the city clean. We kind of add onto that with some more kind of bespoke requests in terms of any particular issues that you've got on your property, within your doorways or graffiti, that kind of stuff. So if you have any cleansing issues, please again get in touch. I'll add that to the email in terms of the phone number to contact for our clean team. Again, they're extending their hours to match the changes within the trading pattern. So please don't be afraid to call on our help. Sorry, just a final one that's just come in from James again. Can a customer stand unseated and wait in a hospitality's premise to wait for their food, or is there no access at all for customers? Ed, can I come back to you for that one again, please?
Yeah. Yes, you can enter a takeaway premises to collect food, but social distancing and wearing of masks is compulsory.
Okay. Thanks very much for that. Sorry, I thought that was another question come in. No, that's fine. Okay, well, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for everybody for joining this webinar. Thank you to our partners for taking the time to come in and share the information with you. I really hope that that you guys have a successful trading period between now and the end of the year and into the new year. We all need it, and please get in touch around queuing vinyls, any help that we can offer, anything that you're unsure of, please get in touch. Thank you very much. If I don't speak to you, and it's not too early to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, so I'm going to do it now just in case you're too busy to take that later on. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.